Hey there, amazing fans! Before we dive into today's drama, don't forget to subscribe, smash that like button, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support means the world to us. Now, welcome to another relaxing moment with Sugar Stories. Grab a seat, sit back, relax, and let's journey into the story together. The rain fell like a curtain from the sky, heavy and unrelenting, drumming against the glass walls of the Cole mansion. From the third-floor study, billionaire Adrian Cole sat at his oak desk, papers spread out before him, though his eyes weren't on the numbers. His empire stretched across continents, but tonight, his thoughts were closer to home, his son, Ethan. A distant sound pulled his gaze toward the sprawling garden below. At first, he thought his mind was playing tricks on him, but then his breath caught. Through the sheets of rain, he saw her. Amara, the maid, slender and soaked to the bone, was kneeling beside Ethan's wheelchair in the middle of the garden. She tilted her face upward, rain dripping down her cheeks, as though she didn't notice, or didn't care, that she was drenched. And then Adrian saw what made his jaw tighten. She was bathing his son in the rain. Water streamed over Ethan's thin frame as Amara gently rubbed his arms, her hands tender and patient. Ethan, pale and usually lifeless, was laughing. His small hands stretched into the downpour as if trying to catch the drops, his eyes brighter than Adrian had seen in years. But to Adrian, from the window, it looked insane, reckless, humiliating. His son was fragile. He could get sick. And this maid, this girl from nowhere, was treating his heir like some street child. Rage burned in his chest. He shoved the chair back so hard it scraped against the floor. Within seconds, he was striding down the hall, his expensive shoes clicking against marble. His heart pounded with every step, anger blinding him. By the time he reached the garden doors, he was already shouting, "What in God's name do you think you're doing?" The storm swallowed his voice at first, but when he burst into the rain, Amara jerked her head up. Her eyes widened, her lips parted, but her hands didn't move from Ethan's shoulders. "Sir, please. Don't you sir me," Adrian snapped, striding toward them, rain flattening his hair against his forehead. "Are you out of your mind? Bathing my son out here? In this filth?" Ethan flinched, shrinking back into the wheelchair, but Amara didn't let go. Her voice was small, trembling, but steady enough to be heard. He asked me to, Mr. Cole." Adrian froze. "What?" "He begged me," she whispered, looking down at Ethan with tears mixing with the rain. "He said he wanted to feel the rain, that he's never felt alive before." For a moment, silence stretched between them, broken only by thunder. Adrian's eyes darted to his son. Ethan's lips trembled, his small voice barely audible. "Daddy, I wanted to." The words cut deeper than any business betrayal ever had. Adrian's throat tightened, but pride forced his anger back to the surface. "That doesn't excuse recklessness," he barked at Amara. "What if he falls ill? What if?" "Then I'll take the blame," Amara interrupted softly, surprising even herself. She lifted her chin, her eyes blazing now. "But he smiled tonight. Did you see that? Do you know how long it's been since he laughed like this?" Adrian's jaw clenched. He had no answer. Because she was right. It had been years. The storm raged on around them, but in that moment, Adrian felt something shift, an unsettling realization creeping into his chest. His son's laughter, raw and unguarded, echoed louder than the thunder. And it wasn't because of him. It was because of her. His gaze hardened as suspicion replaced his anger. "How do you know so much about my son? How dare you presume?" Amara's lips trembled, but she said nothing. She lowered her gaze, hiding the flicker of pain in her eyes. Adrian turned on his heel, his voice low but sharp. "We'll discuss this in the morning. And believe me, young woman, you will have to explain yourself." As he marched back toward the mansion, the rain washing over his broad shoulders, Amara's chest tightened with fear. Ethan's hand slipped into hers, weak but warm. "Don't go," he whispered. She squeezed his fingers, forcing a smile even as her heart pounded with dread. "I'm not going anywhere," she murmured. But inside, she wondered if she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life. The storm had passed by morning, leaving the Cole estate wrapped in silence. Sunlight spilled across the sprawling gardens, glistening on every leaf, but inside the mansion the air was heavy, tense. Amara moved quietly through the halls, clutching the fresh linen she was supposed to change in Ethan's room. Her uniform was dry now, but her mind wasn't at ease. She replayed last night again and again. The rain, Ethan's laughter, Adrian's fury. The way his eyes had burned into her as if she was hiding something. He wasn't wrong. She was hiding something. Her heart hammered at the thought. If Adrian ever found out who she really was, or what had happened to her brother, she would lose this job. Worse, she would lose Ethan's trust, the fragile bond that had blossomed between them since she arrived. Amara. Her breath caught. She turned. Adrian stood in the doorway of his study, his towering frame blocking the light. His hair was neatly combed now, his suit perfectly tailored, but his eyes were colder than the night before. "In my office," he said. Not a request. A command. Amara swallowed hard and followed. The study was a room of power. Dark mahogany shelves lined with books, an antique globe, family portraits in gilded frames. Adrian settled behind his desk, folding his hands, his gaze never leaving her. "You've been in my household for 6 months, he began, voice smooth but sharp. "I hired you because you came highly recommended. A maid, nothing more. Yet last night, his jaw tightened. Last night you overstepped." Amara's fingers dug into the fabric of her apron. "Mr. Cole, I meant no disrespect. Ethan only wanted." "I don't care what he wanted." Adrian's voice cracked like a whip, making her flinch. "He's fragile. Weak. Exposure could kill him. And you." He leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "You acted as if you knew better than me, then his father." For a moment, Amara couldn't breathe. The silence pressed down until her voice came out, trembling. "I didn't mean to undermine you, sir." "But Ethan," she hesitated, her eyes softening. "He isn't weak. He's lonely. He wants to live, not just survive." Adrian's face hardened, but something flickered in his eyes. Something he buried quickly. "You speak as though you've lived this before," he said quietly. Amara froze. For a heartbeat too long, she said nothing. Then she shook her head. "I only know what I see in him. That's all." But it was a lie, and her pounding heart knew it. The heavy doors creaked open. A sharp voice sliced through the tension. "Adrian." Amara turned to see Victoria Cole, Adrian's mother, sweeping into the room like a storm dressed in silk. Her hair was silver, her posture regal, and her eyes the same steel gray as her son's, though colder. She barely glanced at Amara before addressing Adrian. "I've just arrived, and already I hear the servants whispering about scandal in the garden. Bathing a child in the rain? How utterly disgraceful." "Mother," Adrian sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. But Victoria wasn't done. She turned her sharp gaze on Amara. "Pack your things. I won't have my grandson exposed to such village behavior." Amara's chest tightened. "Please, Mrs. Cole." Silence. Victoria snapped. "You're here to clean floors, not play mother." Ethan's small voice rang out from the hallway. "Stop yelling at her." All three froze. Ethan's wheelchair squeaked as he rolled himself inside. His face was pale, but his eyes burned with more strength than Adrian had seen in months. "She's my friend," Ethan said, his voice shaking but clear. "She listens to me when no one else does. I asked her to take me into the rain. She didn't do anything wrong." Victoria gasped, scandalized. Adrian's mouth parted, stunned. Amara's throat tightened with emotion. She reached to steady Ethan's shoulder, but he gripped her hand first, clinging like she was his lifeline. Adrian looked from his son's desperate grip to Amara's trembling fingers. Something shifted in his chest, an ache he couldn't name. But his mother's voice cut through. "Adrian, surely you see this nonsense must end." His jaw tightened. For once, he couldn't answer. Later that night, when the mansion had quieted, Adrian couldn't shake his unease. His son had spoken up for a maid. A maid. And she had looked at Ethan with what? Compassion? Understanding? Or was it manipulation? Suspicion gnawed at him. When he passed by the servants' quarters, the door to Amara's room was ajar. Against his better judgment, he stepped inside. It was simple. A narrow bed, a small desk, a single lamp. But in the drawer, tucked beneath folded uniforms, he found something that made his breath catch. A letter. He unfolded it carefully. To whom it may concern. This is to certify that Amara Nwosu has successfully completed 2 years of medical training at Lagos Medical Institute. Adrian's eyes darkened. Medical training? She wasn't just a maid. She had studied medicine. But why stop? Why hide it? He set the paper down, his pulse racing. This girl wasn't who she claimed to be. And if she'd lied about this, what else was she hiding? The answer came sooner than he expected. It was past midnight when a scream shattered the silence. Mr. Cole. Sir. It's Ethan. Adrian bolted from his bed, rushing toward his son's room. His heart nearly stopped when he saw Ethan slumped in the wheelchair, lips pale, body trembling violently. Call the doctor. Adrian barked at the staff. But before anyone could move, Amara pushed past them, her voice steady despite her fear. Move. I know what to do. She knelt beside Ethan, her hands firm but gentle as she checked his breathing, his pulse. She whispered calming words, guiding him through the seizure. Adrian froze. She wasn't panicking. She wasn't guessing. She knew exactly what she was doing. Minutes felt like hours, but slowly, Ethan's breathing steadied. His trembling eased. His eyelids fluttered open, weak but alive. Relief flooded Adrian so powerfully he nearly staggered. And when his eyes lifted, he found Amara looking at him, her face pale, tears clinging to her lashes. I told you, she whispered, her voice breaking. He doesn't need pity. He needs someone who understands. Adrian's throat closed. For the first time in years, he felt powerless. Not as a billionaire, not as a father, but as a man watching someone else do what he should have done. In that moment, the walls he'd built around himself began to crack. But in the shadows of the hallway, Victoria watched, her eyes narrowed with venom. And she swore to herself, this girl will not destroy my family. The morning after Ethan's collapse, the mansion felt different. The sun broke through the clouds, painting the marble floors gold, but the air was thick with tension. Servants whispered in corners, afraid of the storm brewing within the Cole household. Amara hadn't slept. She had sat by Ethan's bed until dawn, watching his fragile chest rise and fall, listening to the faint whimper of his dreams. When he finally opened his eyes, he had smiled at her, a weak but grateful smile that broke her heart all over again. Thank you, he whispered. She squeezed his hand. Rest, Ethan. That's all I need. But in her heart, she knew it wasn't enough. Not when Adrian's mother, Victoria, was circling like a hawk. By mid-morning, Victoria struck. She cornered Adrian in the study, her voice sharp as the edge of a knife. You must let that girl go. Immediately. Adrian leaned against his desk, exhausted, his tie loose. Mother, she saved Ethan's life last night. Saved him? Or staged it? Victoria hissed. Can't you see? She's manipulating you. First the rain, now this collapse. Convenient, isn't it? She wants more than wages. Women like her always do. Adrian's jaw tightened. Don't what? Don't insult her like that, he said, surprising even himself. His voice was low, dangerous. Victoria blinked, taken aback. Adrian, you can't possibly be. I don't trust easily, he interrupted, but what I saw last night was real. She knew what to do. She was calm when I wasn't. Without her, Ethan, his voice cracked. He turned away, clenching his fists. Without her, I might have lost him. Victoria's lips curled. And if you keep her here, you'll lose something else. Your reputation. The board already whispers that grief over your late wife makes you soft. If they see you defending a servant. Enough. Adrian thundered. The room went silent except for the ticking clock. Victoria's eyes flashed with fury. She straightened her posture, cold as marble. "If you will not act, I will." And she swept from the room. That evening, Amara was called to the Great Hall. Her heart dropped when she saw her small suitcase waiting by the door, neatly packed. Victoria stood like a queen overseeing an execution. "You're dismissed. Permanently." Amara's throat tightened. "But Ethan, you've meddled enough," Victoria snapped. Adrian arrived too late. He burst in just as Amara's trembling hands gripped the handle of her suitcase. His eyes locked on hers, pleading, angry, desperate all at once. "Father, no." Ethan's voice cracked behind them. He rolled his wheelchair forward, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Please don't let her go. She's the only one who makes me happy. Please." The words stabbed straight into Adrian's chest. He had never seen his son beg for anything. But Victoria's hand was firm on Amara's shoulder, pushing her toward the door. "Don't be a fool, Adrian. Let her leave." Adrian looked at his mother, then at his son, whose small fists gripped the wheels of his chair as if trying to hold onto the world. Then at Amara, standing broken, her eyes shimmering with tears she tried to hold back. And in that moment, the choice crystallized. "No," Adrian said, his voice steady. Victoria froze. "What did you say?" Adrian stepped forward, his presence filling the hall. "She stays." His mother's eyes blazed. "Adrian, I said she stays." His voice thundered against the marble walls. "This house is mine. My son is mine. And I will not let your pride steal his happiness." Amara gasped softly. Ethan's eyes widened in disbelief. For the first time, Adrian turned fully toward Amara, his voice breaking. "I've been blind, Amara. Blind to what Ethan needed. Blind to what you've given him. And I won't lose that. Not again." Victoria's face twisted in rage, but Adrian's words silenced her. She spun on her heel and stormed out, her heels echoing like gunshots. Later that night, the sky opened again. Thunder rolled, and the rain came down heavy, just like that first night. But this time, Adrian didn't watch from the window. He was in the garden. Ethan sat in his wheelchair, his face tilted to the sky, arms outstretched. Amara knelt beside him, laughing through her tears. And Adrian walked out into the storm, letting the water soak his $1,000 suit, his hair, his pride. For the first time in years, he felt free. He knelt beside his son, gripping his hand. The boy's small fingers curled around his, strong despite their weakness. "Dad," Ethan whispered, voice trembling but filled with joy. "This feels like my first real family." Adrian's chest ached, but this time it wasn't guilt. It was love, raw and overwhelming. He looked at Amara, her eyes shining even in the storm. "Stay," he said softly. "Not as a maid, as part of us." Her lips parted in shock. Tears mingled with the rain as she nodded. And there, in the downpour, a billionaire, a maid, and a fragile boy became something more than fate ever planned. A family reborn, not in marble halls or golden wealth, but in the simple, unshakable bond of love. The mansion changed after that night. Adrian was no longer the absent father, no longer the man chained to his empire. He became the man Ethan needed. Amara stayed, not as a servant, but as a guardian of Ethan's laughter, and eventually, as something deeper in Adrian's heart. And every time the rain fell, they walked out together, three souls who had once been broken, now whole beneath the storm.